Hi, I'm Jack Bogdan, the creator of Click.
Hey, and I'm Chris Messina, I guess the inventor of the hashtag. Anyways, here we are. Welcome to Worktrees.
And this is Worktrees.
This is totally Worktrees.
This is a show for us to talk about building at the frontier, incredible creators doing beautiful things with software, how everything is changing, how everything is super exciting and scary and cool and weird at the same time, and our place in that and the things that we're jamming on, conversations with other incredible, cool, interesting people, and figuring out our way through this interesting moment while the whole world is changing.
There's a lot of muddling going on, and the pace of change is, on the one hand, obviously you can't keep up with it. And on the other, we're kind of going through the evolution that we've gone through in many other platform shifts in terms of what we're building, what we're doing. But it's the ability for people to, manhandle their software in ways that have never really been possible writ large, that I think is like surprising and exciting, terrifying, and all the rest. And I feel like you're obviously right in the middle of it, with what you're doing with Click. And it seems like you're coming upon this interesting dilemma, even as like a single person, like building, a browser, which is like, given how fast you're able to produce and ship and get things into test flight and, the whole kind of continuous innovation loop. It's like, how do you socialize that? How do you tell people about what's new? Like, what are you working on? And then how do you even get feedback on that?
I used to have a buffer. When Opus 4.5 dropped in December, I was like, I'm feeling,
Right.
It's kind of doing everything I'm asking a lot faster. I'm getting much better results in 1 or 2 iteration cycles than I had previously gotten. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, actually, let me also like ground that. I had the same experience where I had been working on a Google Maps search extension for Raycast last summer. Someone else had built the first version and it was like getting old and I wanted it to do different things. And I think I was using, what was I using? I don't know. One of the models at the time. And I spent probably 2 months like writing all my changes and updates and things like that. Like last week, I was like, you know what? This PR has been sitting here for months and months and months. I need to like do it. I literally like wrote the prompt, put it into Opus 4.6, and it one-shotted it in 30 minutes. So what took me 2 months before now takes 30 minutes.
And at least after that, you'd have a little time to like grab some screenshots, talk a little bit about what you're up to. Or you could dive back in and ask for the next gigantic thing. Exactly. So
That's right.
I found myself in this position where I was like, what is it? It's feeling the AGI. In December, I was like, oh, okay. All right. This is, I actually was so thankful that I had so many of the foundations set up correctly, so that I could take advantage, because it does take a really well-structured, thoughtful hierarchy of how you're building something to really kind of leverage
Do you want
it.
a little bit of how you got those foundations in place? Because I feel like one of the things that's challenging for a lot of people is they're coming to this stuff like brand new, or they've been doing things maybe in a corporate or company context, and now they've downloaded and installed OpenClaw, and it's kind of amazing, but maybe the foundations are a little creaky or they're not so secure. Maybe like, how did you arrive at this place where you're able to take advantage of this and actually build momentum in your sales?
Well, a lot of it is learned, because I've been doing this a while, and unfortunately, that's, I think, a big part of it. But I do think it's really important up front to be opinionated and aware of what you don't know. So let me kind of break that down. I'm very opinionated in certain patterns, like not introducing a ton of dependencies. Really aiming for none if I can afford it. Like, I really want to own all my own logic. I don't want to have to be beholden to all these other areas if I don't have to be. So that's just a tenet of a way that I think about building this stuff.
And why is that important to you?
I don't want to be slowed down by some external risk vector, or like if I need to like fully take over some part of it, I'd rather own all my own destiny on that stuff. Obviously, if there's something that you can defer and it's really simple and you don't want to have to own it, great. But I prefer to be able to go in and tinker if I really have to with as much as I can.
It's interesting though, because like there is a little bit of a dynamic between, and I think there's 2 sort of topics here. One is you can be using a bunch of like frameworks and tools, going to like some package manager, getting a bunch of stuff that other people have built to accelerate your process. what seems to be trendy is you don't really need frameworks as much anymore. You just build it from scratch. And the idea of using a framework used to be to take a bunch of other people's effort and sunk cost around solving a certain set of problems and then reusing that to solve problems that you're coming into now. But now you can just prompt it and you'll get a solution that, as you said, allows you to tinker. But I want to draw a distinction between the fact that you're also building on Apple's platform. And so you're also taking advantage of WebKit, which also, to your point about not being limited, in some ways you are being limited right now. There are certain entitlements that you do not have access to that are actually impeding your ability to deliver the product that you want. I think those two aspects, like what platform and scaffolding do you sort of build upon, and what are the rules of that system versus what are kind of like off the shelf, ingredients or elements that you could reuse from elsewhere that actually could slow you down because they don't do the thing that you need or because it just adds bloat or unnecessary surface area.
You want just enough scaffolding to make sure that you're not shooting in the dark. At least because I've chosen Apple because I wanted built-in security updates if I'm building a browser, and that was something I just set a constraint for myself. I don't want to be responsible for some kind of higher level browser level security vector. I'm not patching WebKit, Apple is. And so if you're keeping your Mac up to date, then you're good to go. That's like one, I guess, strategic decision that I made for myself, where I'm like, that is an area I don't want to touch. I don't even want to open Pandora's box. I'm going to build around a constraint.
Right. It's also a tool chain around that too, right? Because you could have gone with Chromium, but Chromium is quite a heavyweight platform. There's a lot of tooling for people building on Chromium, but it doesn't also jive, I think, with some of the values of, simplicity and elegance and, like building around the Mac experience, especially with iCloud Sync and things like that.
Well, and I'd still be on the hook for making sure that I patch to support the latest version of Chromium. That's right. And it's like the biggest dependency of all time because you're just constantly, figuring that out. Now, of course, it's a big trade-off. Chromium has a lot more features and other things out of the box that I would have gotten to play with, but I made the decision for myself that I didn't want to have to open up that Pandora's box, honestly, for myself as a solo developer. Well, I think
it's also worth, if people are using Arc, then they'll notice, that the only thing that Arc is doing now is essentially patching Chromium on a regular cadence. So at some point, that is what you inherit by building on that platform versus like the path that you chose.
Well, and now that I've set up these constraints for myself though, right? And so we get to December, and in December, things start to move a lot faster. I can still keep up with promoting what I'm up to. I miss a few things here and there because I'm kind of shipping pretty quickly at this point. But once Opus 4.6 and Codex 5.3 dropped, everything changed because now I'm one-shotting. Because I have such a strong structure around how things work, I have so many well-defined patterns for data management and full iCloud syncing, for secure keychain syncing, like all these things that are subsystems that use different elements of the Apple ecosystem. Now, when I want to go do something, these models are so good that they're like, oh, yes, we should definitely use the keychain sync for this and clearly wire it up with an iCloud push hint here from this pattern, and then that will solve this. This is a real example, so I'll share it. For the longest time, this whole project, the biggest pain point for me has been password managers because you do not get them out of the box. The built-in extension support from WebKit is very poor. It doesn't support MV3 extensions, so I can't just use 1Password. And that's a problem. Yes, manifest feature. Exactly. So I can't turn on these extensions natively. I had a hack for basically the entire time of the project until now, where it would fire the hotkey that your password manager uses on your system as a global hotkey, and then it would try and autofill the URL you're on, which there was a race condition where it might not catch in time, and it might put that in your password, and then you would have to go find the thing and put it in. And I knew that wasn't good enough, but I also knew that porting full extension support was going to be a total nightmare. Maybe not anymore. I need to revisit now with these new models, but I had another idea, which was it's a multi-platform browser now. It's on your iPhone, it's on your iPad, it's on your Mac, it's on your watch. It's really cool. I'm super excited.
It's crazy to have like using Click on your watch is like such a weird, but it's a full browser.
It's right nuts. There. And the news feeds on the watch now too. It's so cool. So, all right. I had the out there idea before these new models dropped, which was I think that there is a workaround here. And I think the workaround is the iOS app is essentially an authenticator. And if I can be browsing on my Mac and fire an event that is read by the iOS app that includes all the data and information about what site I'm on, so that then I can use the iOS's native built-in password manager support, which is not gated by Apple, I could have a really cool experience where it stays entirely encrypted. It's totally on your device. It understands the context of what you're getting into. I can use all the cool, fancy, automated styling functionality that I already have from the browser and build an experience that feels super magical, where you go to a website and you say you want to sign in, you click one button, it has a little message in line in the macOS browser saying waiting for iPhone. Your iPhone either automatically picks it up with Bonjour, or it fires a push notification via iCloud to tell your phone to wake up and listen for the request for credentials. And then you open the app automatically. It loads the sheet that tells you where the request is coming from. It explains in an accordion how the encryption works, which is honestly, it's so cool. And then it tells you what website it's asking for, and it has fields for username, password, and code. And if you autofill that, it saves securely to iCloud Keychain. It's not iCloud Keychain, sorry. It's just the Keychain is its own element, and that's synced separately from iCloud data. That's encrypted, sent back to the Mac where it has all the details, and then just like a password manager, it'll fill subsequent pages. So if the first page is email only, but you've just sent email, password, and code, it'll automatically fill all of it and then just go. It's super cool. I have not seen anyone do that, and that's what I needed. But the benefit was I already had all the pipeline. This is the perfect example. I had just added bring your own API key support for the assistant. And that implementation is the first time that I had added keychain level syncing. That's the first time I've touched it. But because I had that pattern in the app and I was now touching the password manager, the plan was like, oh yes, we should definitely take advantage of that keychain sync for the end-to-end encryption, and then to wake up the device, you should use this pattern, et cetera. It's super amazing. That whole thing I did on the plane, a very complex feature wrapped on a plane. And so I have shipped so much in the last week, more than, it's honestly hard to keep up. Like I haven't, the list is insane. And two things hit me. One, I'm the bottleneck, and I'm the bottleneck in a way that like I've never felt before, because it's literally, if I can think it, I can get it into plan mode and building it. And honestly, built in minutes.
You're not even doing like multiple simultaneous agents, right? Like you're orchestrating these things directly. Is that right? Or are you setting up multiple Claude Code instances and these features are being built like simultaneously?
I'm doing multiple agents. Yes. I'm kicking off basically multiple
like
things
how many?
at once. Depends. It could be, it's on average, it's like 3 or 4 at a time when I'm actively working, and I'm kind of seeing things through, just so that I have enough like mental like power to go through. But I'll often kick off.
How do you handle like breakpoints or like almost like check-ins? Because like these agents can work, for quite some time, which seems to be to your point. Like there's so many things happening in developer land where if you were going from being like a 1x to like a 5x to like a 10x engineer, now it sort of is like you're like 100x. But as you said, you're the bottleneck because one, trying to maintain state is hard. Two, doing quality control on the production that the agents are doing is hard. And maybe you set up sort of a scaffold where the agents are checking each other's work, and then that helps to some degree. But it's also the degree to which you're able to describe the feature and the functionality and I don't know, the things that you might hit along the way that are like roadblocks. It feels like that's one of the challenges of maintaining coherence, especially as like an individual person.
I think it's slightly different for native development because
Tell me more.
Well, with web development, you're hot loading updates all the time. So you can be iterating and just immediately get an update, but you have a baked in pause period for native dev where you have to build and then see it on device and validate. So for me, and the reason I'm a bottleneck is, yes, I can kick off multiple threads of big features that I want to ship. I have to build them ultimately and validate them when I get to that stage. Like, yes, I can set up the plan. I mean, I just described it last night.
Build meaning compile. There's two different like builds.
Yeah,
concepts.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm compiling it and then opening the compiled app on my Mac or iPhone.
Like you said, it's not like a hot sort of situation where, you push a change to like a web page and it's instantly available with, Command R. This is actually, you've got to kind of run the build process where Xcode or whatever other scaffolding you're using kind of like does the compilation. And then you end up with a binary, and then the binary gets tested on whatever device you are targeting.
Right. And now, but like, with how good these models are, I described it last night as like an Opus take the wheel. Like,
Sure.
I don't,
That's a great t-shirt, but
I don't need I actually, as far as starting to remove myself as a bottleneck in this whole pipeline, I am adding buttons in my flow of like my approval flow. Because I have like a build flow that I've set up now that really goes through. If I have a bunch of features and things that I have prepped, it goes through and it does a code review. It does with subagents. It does a simplification review. It'll go through and pause, build, have me validate any fixes or things that came through. And in all of that, I had previously had it ask me what I wanted to take on along the way. And I changed the flow to have a you figure it out button, which, so I 95% of the time use that now because it's better at deciding what's important and what isn't important in whatever is identified. And so now it's so interesting because I've been really leaning into this for a year. And so I've seen a lot of the change in how much I've had to take on versus how much and how hard it was initially to kind of get things over the finish line to now starting to think strategically about how to build the factory. It's like a different way of thinking. It's like, how do you build the machine that builds the machine?
I use the metaphor of the architect, and it feels like this is like you're the foreman kind of executing a plan and overseeing like the different groups that are responsible for different, I don't know, like the plumbing, the ductwork, like, laying the foundation. And so you have these check-in points to make sure that things are going according to whether it's plan or intention. And then there's always maybe some wiggle room or decision points where, it was mismeasured or the angle was off or, again. So I guess, yes, it's a factory, but you're not creating the same thing over and over again, right?
Correct. But those tenets in the code is the truth. And so any patterns that you define and you beat up to be really clean.
How are you? So this is the question I have. Like, how are you defining these patterns and where do those patterns exist? Because code is law, but like, are these like prompts? Are these skills? Because there's a bunch of things that exist on, the coding agent side, and people are making, changes at that level.
So, okay, I've iterated on this over time. So one other part of my build process is it updates every README in the app. And I have READMEs broken out by features.
Who are these READMEs for? Are these READMEs for users, for agents, for yourself?
It's for agents and me. It's basically...
So these are sort of like agents.md files.
Essentially, but it's for basically major features, major subsystems in the app. And it's constantly updated based on what is actually shipped. So there's never a gap where I'll ship something and I don't update the README and suddenly we have two sources of truth, the code and the README, right? So the README should always reflect a summarization of higher level architecture decisions, how things interact with each other, et cetera. It's written for layman's terms so that I can go in and validate high level, but it's also a map to understand how everything works. So it's an easy
the other way to do
artifact.
this would have been like doc strings or putting the like comments directly in with the code. And so,
I still do that, and I know that people use DSlop because you don't want to blow up your context windows and things like that. But I use both. I think that like anchor point. I mean, who the hell really knows? But it feels like anchor points in the code because it's just going to use agentic search. It's going to grep and find what it needs. But having a centralized artifact is really helpful because you can understand how subsystems work. This is a very large code base now. All my feature work is centralized in feature folders. So all of the logic for a feature lives in one place. I don't have branching logic in a bunch of different places. It's very clean. And that's it's a huge foundational point for anyone starting a project is to have a very simple, clean hierarchy of how things live and a mental model around that for yourself. Because that mental model for yourself to help you understand how to find information and where to go is exactly the model you will want to maintain the project long-term so that you don't ever get into a scenario where something is added, some random subdirectory that is impossible to find, and you've suddenly made a mess, and you are entirely reliant on the agent to figure out what the hell
I
everything
mean, that
lives.
sounds good, but there's a real question about how. Because I feel like, throughout the last 20 years, I've gone through several different iterations of just how I organize my own files based on, new life stages and like, oh, actually putting all these things into this one folder about my records actually is not good enough. So when it comes to this scaffolding, this goes back to some of your experience. But if someone is starting a new project, like building a browser is quite different in terms of scaffolding versus, building like a podcast app. And so, and then not to mention, if you want to have like either feature flags or things that you can turn on and turn off or experiment with, the architecture of all of that is quite important, I guess, to get right. So what is the methodology or the approach that you take? Because
I think this is the same conversation that you'd have with somebody if you ask them what work system do you use and what to-do app do you use
Sure.
and how do you organize it. It's complete personal preference. So the answer is whatever is easy for you to understand where things live so that you don't ever get lost. So for me, right, I will say it has evolved over the course of the project because the project started as a Mac-only app because I did not know
Right.
or understand how to set it up for multiple
I
devices.
guess this is what I'm asking. How easy was it for you to then to switch around? Suddenly you decide to have, to add a pool at a pool house. And I mean, in the real world, it'd be hard to like blow up the house and be like, well, let's just move it over 2 feet so we can like accommodate it.
That's gone. You can do whatever you want very quickly now. It's not difficult because
Great.
it is literally an organization issue, and these models are incredibly smart. And as long as there's a plan and a clear understanding of the hierarchy, this is not a difficult problem anymore.
I'm making a point of this because I think this is an important distinction with how things were before. And, if you go back in a lot of legacy code and architectures, I mean, one of the things that I've had to disabuse my coding agents about is backwards compatibility. I'm building something for the first time, or there's no public API, or I'm the only user who's writing the code. We don't need backwards compatibility. And so I have to keep telling it, no, just get rid of the code and replace it with a new version. We don't need that anymore. So I guess like this is one of those, so this new type of building, where as you say, you can kind of almost wipe the slate clean and just move things around based on your new mental model of what you're building, especially as you're adding new platforms. And that arrives at wherever you are, as opposed to having to maintain the legacy to be like, oh, like that thing's over here. And it's, because this team and politics and all these human factors, you don't need to worry about that anymore.
Totally. And you should challenge yourself about improvement on some regular cadence to think about it because there's always some forcing function. So the migration from single macOS only app to monorepo, huge, massive unlock because I actually already had very clean organization in the context of the Mac app. And now I wanted to extend that. And it felt obvious to me how I would want to do it. I wanted to have a shared folder with every shared logic and component that goes across every device. Then I obviously need a folder for macOS, a folder for iOS, a folder for watchOS, and anything that's platform specific lives in those folders. And we never get into a situation where something that is only macOS goes into any other place. It should just live in that macOS location. And so now when anything is getting built, the pattern is so obvious. It's like, this is a shared element, so it goes into shared. And it gets integrated into these 3 areas in each app for it to be read.
Okay, let me pause you there, because like one of the things that I think feels different, and again, this is somewhat contemporaneous in the last several years, is how Apple has moved to make cross-platform development like the norm, right? They have iPad, macOS, iPhone, Watch, Vision OS. And so what you're saying, and I think this is where Apple's been going, which maybe has been, I noticed, I think, is being retired or something. Like these sort of like foundational computing platforms that were very desktop specific and never made it over to like mobile devices are going away. And so Apple with, I presume, Swift, although maybe it's Objective-C, I'm not sure what you're like mostly coding in, but I guess what I'm asking is how much of this is based on how Apple has already been approaching development that makes it easier for you to do what you're doing, where you have sort of a central resource of different logics and routines and functions. And then you have, like you said, the platform specific expressions.
Honestly, I think it's similar to any of these big foundational pieces with whatever stack you choose. So, Apple has all this legacy stuff just like anyone else. There's all kinds of weird things you learn when building in like the native Apple ecosystem around when you use Swift UI or AppKit or UIKit. Like there's all this cruft of ways of doing things that compile more efficiently or have better performance on device or are faster, easier to share across devices. And you learn that as you build. But the fact that I have all these incredible APIs to tap into and platform features to tap into just means that I can go from zero to a fully realized idea a lot faster. And so if you're going to pick doing a project, start in an environment that you're comfortable with or provides enough scaffolding or foundation of what you're interested in, but then also challenge yourself and see if you can't get a little simpler. I have a project I'll share at the end of this that I've been jamming on for a couple days that literally was okay, let's start with vanilla JS and then let's figure out what other elements do we actually need to make this more effective or efficient. But getting back to Click for a second and the pace of change and how fast I'm building, I can basically spin up whole startups, it feels like, multiple at a time, and actually see them realized with full validation and testing incredibly quickly. Click is like my love letter to the internet. It's how I want to use the web. And so it's a testing ground of everything that I want to throw in for how I interact with the internet and how I want to browse and read and listen, etc. And so I added the feed as a means by which I can have a centralized...
Wait, you have to stop and explain what the feed is.
Okay.
No one listening knows what the feed is yet.
Well, let me give... So Click
and this, depending on how you want to talk about this could also be the example where you're building so fast that socializing the features and functionality are incredibly difficult because you can just build the thing and then launch it. And this is what I was going to say at the top. There's this issue where, in a way, you're becoming like a software creator, not a software engineer, meaning that someone has to be watching you you don't even make YouTube videos. So you make, Threads posts mostly. And that's where your updates go. Actually, your test flight release notes are probably the best way to keep track of what's going on. And so if you're not paying attention to those things and reading those things, you're going to suddenly find a bunch of functionality and Click that you're like, wait, what is this? The other day, I launched the preferences, the settings on the Mac app, and it's ballooned into all this functionality that took, Arc 6 months, a year to do. And I don't even know how to begin. What do I do? And I'm seeing this as a pattern in many apps that I will download, is they speed run the entire process of all the other competitor apps. And so instead of focusing on one thing, an example is, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, there's an app called Better Audio. And they allow you to set the volume of each individual app on your Mac. There are several products that will do this already, but that's where it started from. And then it added 40 other features, AI note-taking and transcriptions and YouTube downloads. And you're like, what even is this anymore? Because it's so easy. So there's this challenge, I guess, between as you're saying, one, you've got this new feed and you've put it out there, people can use it. But if they haven't been paying attention closely because they're, watching OpenClaw or something, they download and install Click and they're like, wait, what is this? So there's this I think, challenge of explaining and bringing people along that journey.
Well, not only that, I no longer have enough space in the change logs with how fast I'm going. And I'm not kidding. I've run out. I'm
I didn't know there was a maximum.
No, well, there's a maximum in test flight.
Sure.
And if you miss, because of the amount of core features I'm shipping so quickly, if you miss a single test flight notification, you will miss a massive log of just an insane level of foundational, really freaking cool features that, and my ethos here is that most of what I do is meant to be behind the scenes and to be invisibly powerful as you go. So, it is nice to be able to share a little bit of that or have people understand it. But if I want to keep shipping as fast as I'm shipping, I'm just at this crossroads. I need to communicate what I'm doing, but I need to keep delivering some of these big bets and explorations and personal experimentation that I want to deliver. So I've stopped feature development as of yesterday of this week. And I am focusing on the factory that bakes into my CI/CD pipeline. Because here's what I need, right? I need a clear running log of everything that I'm doing and the updates that I'm making on a system by system basis, right? My READMEs organized are not super granular. They are system based. So I have a system around the feed, which covers podcasts, videos, publications, subscriptions, etc. So there's a lot of data.
Also personalization, which is a whole new area.
Totally. Custom algorithms, right? That all lives in a single README. That's a system. And I need to be able to, as quickly as I can think, improve all these major systems, take feedback in and validate. But then I need to capture that I've done that. I need to update help guides and other help information which does not exist currently in the app so that people can figure out what the heck is going on. I need to generate help documentation, right, at scale that starts to document how things work with clarity along the way. I need the website, which has not been touched since August, to reflect a living, breathing, updated software product. I have a feed now, which was purposeful for multiple reasons, but I now have a place to put updates about what's happening in the app, a new feature that you should try or experiment with, etc. And I can make that really smart and interesting based on the things that you're already using in the app. So that, I could do mini podcasts and dev vlogs about what's happening in a way that's super authentic and connects with people. I have all this home base for this stuff, but I'm one person. And so if I want to move as quickly as I want to move on the product, while also promoting and communicating what I'm actually up to, I need the machine that does that while I'm building. And so my focus in the last 2 days, which has been so cool and exciting because the whole realm of this process I haven't touched yet, has been extending my CI/CD pipeline and my build process where it will automatically produce all of that documentation. It will produce screenshots, actual screenshots of the macOS and iOS apps, screen recordings with ScreenFlow style animations and motion blur of virtual cursors walking through features. And I'm every time I hit a barrier in learning how to set things up, it's just exposing another foundational element I need to add. I'll give an example. So the screen recordings were having trouble knowing exactly what to click and where, because it was trying to use vision models to see that every single time while also looking at the code to know what to anchor against. And I'm like, oh, sounds like we need a map. So we should create map documentation for all UI that is incredibly clean and simple in a format that you, Opus or Codex 5.3 Pro, understand. And let's do that for the entire app so that from here on out, when we need to go and generate screenshots or screen recordings, you know exactly what to be clicking on. And guess what? We're going to update that artifact every time we do a commit so that we never get out of sync or out of date. And so what's happened now, which is so cool, and it's very early, I have a flow that will go through, look at the code, propose what screenshots to take, what FAQs to break out, how it works, what to expose. It will dynamically build a guide, which both lives on the website and in the app natively. It will automatically generate screen recordings and screenshots to go in that guide. It will automatically populate feed cards for helpful guide information that would be relevant to you based on something new that's just shipped or something that you care about. And it automatically prompts me for podcast material, but I'm actually going to experiment with 11 Labs and see if I can't generate some devlog style stuff based on this. And it automatically built a Cloudflare Workers based website that dynamically has a connection to the CI/CD pipeline so that when I build, it automatically produces all the information and preps it on a dev site for me to approve to then get published. And again, I have to figure out a solution to this that scales because otherwise I won't be able to manage it. And my real hope here is that I get enough users on the platform that I don't need to lean into social so much all the time. And I can really rely on the feed as the mechanism by which I can communicate a lot of this stuff. But, of course, Marty, it's very easy to extend this to auto post to X or auto post to Threads or whatever. And I have all the assets, and the hardest part is just producing the goddamn assets. I'm really getting it to the place that I want it to get to. The screenshot flow is not just a screenshot of the iOS device. It's a screenshot with an iPhone 16 Pro overlay cropped correctly and looking like I prepped the ASO images in Figma or something. I'm really setting it up so that it looks great, it feels great, it's easy to extend, and it allows me. This is the big thing. I'm doing this because I have the most fun shipping as fast as I can think. That's where I want to be spending my time. And also, frankly, I'm trying to prove a point. The opportunity right now is so beyond what any of us can comprehend, and it's February. Think about December and what the models will be capable of. I would love to be in a position where we reach another step function, and I am managing multiple agents, building things in the style of the way that I would build them, doing research autonomously and coming back, running analysis on feedback from users dynamically and spinning off work trees and building features and automatically producing the screen recordings and walkthroughs for those features for me so that I can review what it's done without having to build every single time. And I can actually just get a feed of all the things that have been happening across platforms. I am setting a foundation so that I can get to that future when the models are that good. And it allows me to still have the input around how something should be built when it matters, right? Because some stuff, it doesn't matter. I'll give another example. I added private memory with rich embeddings and engagement signals across every touch point in the app. When you read things, when you're browsing sites, etc., it knows what you're looking at, what you care about. It's dynamically indexing it, creating embeddings. It's identifying narrative threads of what you are researching and when. This is all private on device. So my whole ethos is, I don't want to see.
Was this, you just prompted it to do this and to build this algorithm, or is this a case where you are using a framework?
No,
because like this feels like PhD type stuff.
No, because I have an expert derived from all experts. You know, Opus and Codex. These things are so ridiculously smart that I just need to understand.
Well, what did you tell it to get to this? Because I want to just go a little bit deeper into this one because you've got a list of other features. So what is it? Because developing these algorithms, I mean, like there are billion-dollar businesses that are predicated around that type of thing. Let's call them Meta and X, et cetera.
Yeah, and guess what? There's a lot of There's a lot of documentation about how they all built, right? I'll tell you exactly how those started. I started multiple deep research projects, one in ChatGPT, one in Claude, one in Gemini. And I told it that, hey, my goal is to flip the script and to build an algorithm on device that is modeled after the same ad tracking algorithms that spy on you everywhere, except it's entirely private. And I want to flip it so that it actually supports what you do. And it helps improve your browsing experience over time.
I call it resonant computing.
And it is not this mechanism to market to you or extract value. It is yours, and it should take no effort from you. It should just live in the background behind the scenes and magically make everything better over time. That is my baseline. And so setting up that foundation and iterating through what elements should I sync across devices, what elements stay private on device. OpenClaw coming out at that time and having documentation around how the memory system and other things work. Fantastic. Great foundations to go through and model after for saving information. It saves journal entries on your day's browsing history over time by space, by device, etc. Everything is designed for an agent-first discovery and an update flow. And by the way, I'm using Apple Intelligence as an on-device search agent. I'm spinning up sub-agents with Apple Intelligence. I'm starting to try and push the boundaries. I mean, it's flexible. You can use other models if you want. But my whole goal is I want to build the future of this stuff now. And I can because I have access to so much relevant information about how it's been done in the past. And I know how I want to basically remix it for what I'm interested in and my personal preferences. So I've got private memory, rich embeddings, narrative threads. I launched the news feed, right, which builds on top of those. So you get all the same engagement signals. It's understanding what you care about, what you like from your daily news habit, which I'm a big news hound. I used to be a big artifact user. This is my, I don't want another app. I want a single place for this. I also listen to a lot of podcasts. Why not? I want to have a media feed where I can have my podcasts, my YouTube channels that I subscribe to, et cetera, all in one spot that I can easily go through and listen. Having downloads for all of that stuff, having it sync progress across devices. This is another thing about moving as quickly as you can think. Apple made this big announcement about in iOS 26.4, they're extending the podcast app to support HLS video streams. And so I'm like, that's cool. And in 20 minutes, I had the full feature built out because there's a spec that's been around since July. There are 4 podcasts that support it today. I found them and I validated with them and it looks and feels amazing, right? And so you can literally go from concept to implementation so quickly. That would be a huge release for a podcast app in the past. But this is 20 minutes of my time in a sub feature that I personally care about, while also spinning up 8 other agents to work on major features. I added 2 new feed styles to the feed based on feedback that came in on social. I have a compact and I have a really freaking cool TikTok style swipe feed that has like crazy cool haptics and dynamic colors, etc. The custom feed algorithms, because this is something I care about. I think you should have complete control over what information you see and when, even when it's stuff you've subscribed to. And so you can change every dial. My built-in algorithms are just dials set to this custom algorithm. There's nothing I'm doing special. I'm just sliding the sliders and saying, this is what chronological means, this is what balance means, this is what personalized means. I've got complete reader mode overhaul. I think I've got maybe the best reader mode in any of these products because I'm dynamically pulling in fonts from the landing site and colors from the landing site so that it is super authentic to the original site as you browse. Also, I have a full indexed save system because I don't think tab load really matters. I think people keep 40 tabs because they want to remember something, but I have full embedding and save and journaling system with offline support because I'm saving it to your iCloud, which you can all see. Everything you save, you can go to your iCloud folder and see it saved there. I'm exporting it all to Markdown. I'm saving off images and videos for you. It's all there and it's indexed. So you don't need to go through and keep 50 tabs. You can just discover something that you might be interested in, take the one action of saving it. And by the way, behind the scenes, I'm auto tagging it and prepping it for collections and other things like that based on these threads. I haven't launched that yet. I added YouTube sync with resume progress, and I even have a variant. I don't know if I'll turn it on, but I have a really cool variant for YouTube playback that can live on any site you go to in the podcast bar. It's pretty sick. I have automatic iCloud backups, so you can turn it on in settings, and every day it'll back up all your tabs, all your memories, all your whatever, and you can have rolling backups for 30 days. It tells you what device is backing up. I also use it for my development backups because I have a dev versus prod. I have really good history with threads. That's going to get a lot better over time. I added, this is so cool, I added a full MCP server to Click, and it hasn't shipped yet. I need Apple to approve it. So you, in your settings under AI, you can turn on the MCP server, and you can go connect it to Claude Code or Cursor, or you can add it to your Claude desktop implementation, and it unlocks 36 browser automation tools, 11 resources, 8 prompts. It can go through your tabs. It can browse automatically for you. It can, if you want to do browser automation or testing, frankly, it's probably even better than Safari for automated testing around what WebKit does, because you can do things like running an accessibility trace or injecting JavaScript on a page, and it's doing all this dynamically. And so that's fully running. And by the way, it uses an encrypted key, so it's not just open. You have to have a special key to be able to use the MCP, so things can't just sniff it and then just start interacting with your data. Privacy and security is a base in all this stuff. I have a new AI autonomy setting because I added sub-agents, I added approvals. These new tools that I added for the MCP are now available in the assistant bar. So that's getting a hell of a lot better. You can bring, again, like I mentioned, you can bring your own API keys. I added support for Anthropic and OpenRouter and OpenAI and all the rest of them. Sub-agents are in there. So that, all of that was like 4 days of work. And so in a world where that is happening, I don't have enough time. I'm out of time to do the rest. I can't screenshot fast enough. I can't record
you're talking
fast
about,
enough.
okay, like when you say the rest, what you're saying is you don't have enough time to go through and do a launch, do a release, like to write these things down, to do proper promotions, to get the stuff out there. It's just an avalanche of new stuff. So one of the questions though, and I don't know how to understand where we are relative to where we're going, because there's still so much built up around the idea of episodic releases, where it's like creating a meal. Sort of like have your main dish, you have some the side dish, the salad, whatever. You pace it out in courses, and then you serve it. And you're like, this is what we're eating for dinner. And the chef comes out and explains everything. And then people have a good time eating the food. In your case, you're just like constantly cooking, quite literally. And I think, so to put this into context, I think it was 2 weeks ago, might have been last week. Again, things happen so fast. The prototype leaderboard hit over 600 products in a single day, And on that day, I think there was maybe 16 or something that were actually featured. So it's becoming a problem writ large, and it's it's a mix of getting distribution. It's a mix of people discovering the product, right? Because if you're not doing all that other stuff that you just described, even if you are automating it, right, there's still a question of engagement and how do people find and discover. Like even if you have the perfect release notes, perfect screenshots, perfect screen flows, and it's just drafting off of you automatically, there's just exhaust of stuff, that is being described based on the stuff that you're committing. Will people find it? Will they discover it? How do they get to it? If you're locked into code world, how do people out in not code world discover your product and discover your efforts? And so I don't know if, like, this is why I'm saying, like, maybe you just become like a software creator where people are subscribing to you and the updates that they're getting are your software updates. I mean, it's interesting to sort of see you go back and forth between the Click browser account versus like the Jack account. And it's almost ambivalent between which one you focus on. And for other teams that don't have one individual who's doing all the work, I think they're really struggling because they're putting out these generic, like, here's an app. You're like, okay, who cares? Why do I care about this app? What is the perspective behind it? Okay, so you cloned a bunch of features that are available in other products. It doesn't make you a good app chef. You're just kind of going through a checklist because you can and not actually distilling a set of needs or a set of behaviors. You're at least authentic in identifying your own behaviors and then building software to meet those needs with a presumption that maybe there are other Jack-like people out there, and that they would want Jack-like features. Like you should just call the browser Jack and that would be much, clearer. I think what I'm trying to understand in your description of the need to automate all this other stuff bucket, the question is, what is the purpose of that stuff? And is it a matter of promotion, discovery, distribution? Because you feel a need to do it in a perfunctory way. I guess on the one hand, there's growth and there's distribution, but then there's also how do you communicate to the people that are already like on board and are your fans who are trying to like follow along and they got shit to do. They got kids to pick up at school. Like they don't have time to read all of your amazing AI generated release notes, right? So I think this dynamic is incredibly fraught.
I think, man, there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to try and break it down into a few key ideas for me. To your point on Product Hunt of 600 new products and an endless fire hose.
24 hours.
This is why I'm only working on Click as my primary. All of my creative energy when it comes to how I think the internet should work is going into that project. And so I'm not splitting my time. I see these people bragging online of like, oh, look, I've got my 45th iOS app. And I'm like, this is actually a symptom of a
And 44 of them suck.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think focus is really important. 2, building a relationship with people over time means updating them about what the heck is going on and why you're doing what you're doing. I literally just made this mistake. I was like, I can't figure out how to update you on everything I'm doing. So here's a tweet thread on 50 friggin' things in a list. And it got, no one cares. And that's not the way people consume information. You want a bite-sized thing that's focused and cool and
Why does this matter for me? And how do I fit it in my little brain and my little attention span that I have available for this?
So, that's right. I'm designing this pipeline so that everything is a bite-sized mini chunk of information. And I'm taking advantage of my own feed so that I can only show you stuff that I think you would really care about and surface that in the context of clearly other stuff you care about, which is the feed of information.
Wait. So I think what you're saying is, and I think this is important, there's so many things that you could blast out to the world, the shotgun blast to everybody, in the face. And they're like, oh, what is this? Versus you could actually personalize the release notes and the features that you emphasize to an individual user based on their preferences, their habits, other features that they engage in. So for example, if I'm a heavy user of the feed and I love the podcast thing, but I don't use the browser at all, then the release notes that I get would be personalized and written to me based on my goals or what I'm trying to achieve.
That's right. You're going to see something new and shiny that you care about because you love video podcasts. And guess what? There's a whole new HLS streaming thing for you. And if you're not using the podcast at all, you have no podcast subscribed whatsoever, I'm not going to show you those new features as a primary unless you choose to opt into some of that stuff. This is, again, I'm going to build it in a way where you can choose. I'll set up a baseline and then you can go nuts. And step 1 is getting the actual pipeline up and running so then I can start to play with how that works. But that's the way I'm thinking about it.
I think so again, just to build on what you're saying, to make it clearer, this is why it's worth it to build the automation for those other things. Because once you have a large menu of the updates that you could provide to anybody, then you have sort of an AI agent or something in between, an algorithm or whatever it happens to be, that then picks from the menu and does sort of like an omakase, for updates, and delivers it to the user in a way that they're like, oh, this is like super relevant and super interesting, and I love this, and I'm going to go share about it because I care about this one feature, as opposed to here's a sea of updates of random stuff that who cares? This is not for me.
That's right. And I think that you have to change that model if you're spinning 8 plates and shooting off updates so quickly, because you might ship an MCP server and a small subset of people will care about that. And that's okay. I built it for me because I needed it. I actually used my own MCP server to take the automated screenshots of macOS because I needed that functionality. So that's okay. You shouldn't see, as somebody who doesn't even use the AI features, or maybe only uses the iOS app, that there's an MCP server on macOS. Doesn't matter.
That's right.
Right? But I want to be able to, as quickly as I can think it, ship stuff that I know is going to be really freaking useful for me and other people that like me. And I hear stuff all the time from users that are like, oh, I really wish I had this. And I'll be like, okay, great, let me go at it. Because, oh yes, that actually does make sense as a larger bet or a bigger thing that needs to be expanded in the way that people use it. And that covers the gamut. That could be major feature releases, or that could be a UX pattern. So I want to build that dialogue. I think it's really important to set up a repeatable process by which I can see what people are saying. I can collate those shared ideas, have them organized. Ideally, in the future, dynamically kick off flows to start iterating and building on those ideas, reviewing the work in visuals in a guide that's human readable, and walking through what a feature could really look and feel like, and then again directing from there. And I think that's where things are going. And so that is what I'm trying to set myself up for, which is kind of difficult with native dev. I've just found it's harder than hard. I mean, there's not really a lot of prior art for the stuff that I'm digging into right now. So I'm trying to figure it out and build the foundations for me to do it. But I'm having so much fun. Like this is my golden era. I like having the best time of my life building this stuff, because the sky's the limit. And if you're creative and thoughtful about the kinds of things that you're exploring, and the ideas and the things that your personal tenets, the things you care about, the stuff that's like, I believe in really good, beautiful design and patterns. I believe in privacy first, that you should have total control over your data, that things should just work and sync across everything that you own, that you should have the flexibility and freedom to control the sliders and levers when it impacts the way that you consume information, because it is your life. So you should have control over what that feels and looks like. You should follow the things you care about and not get stuff you don't want. There's so much of the way that I think software should exist that I'm building into the foundations of what Click is. And if I can crack these higher order flows that allow me to really explore the breadth of what the internet is, I feel like I can outship anyone. Giant teams. My competition are 50, 100, 1,000-person teams at these massive companies, and I want to outship them. I want to outship them with new ideas and better patterns, because they have to have 50 meetings about something, and it has to go through 10 layers of conversation and iteration, and I don't have any of that burden.
I think so just like, I wouldn't call it like pushback, but contextualization is like, let's say that you get to, I don't know how many users you have now, but let's say you get to 10,000, then 100,000. Let's say you get to your first million users. One of the things that a lot of these big companies are set up around is both risk management and change management, and being able to reduce the surface area of exposure to their customers while also increasing the value of that surface area to the organization. Now, you are currently operating in a very different economic paradigm, which is novel and different. And I don't know how repeatable that might be, but let's say that you add in subscriptions at some point, even like setting aside like the economic aspects of this. I guess my question is more along the lines of, you're building so fast and building a lot of surface area to sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like building out like the San Francisco waterfront, when it used to be a bunch of like muck and then you could start to build buildings on top of it. So once you've, let's say, built out the formal foundation of what Click is and the various components that make it up. I mean, maybe you'll just keep building forever. I don't know. But when it comes to improving those things or changing those things, when you have a user base that is wedded to the way things work, how do you see that aspect change in terms of your process?
I actually bake this into the way I think about building features today because I know this is super important. And I'm setting up to a world where my goal is by the end of the year of having 100,000 people actively using Click as some primary aspect of their browsing life, whether it's as their primary browser on their phones or on their computers, or whether it's their main podcast app or their main newsreader. I want to become a part of your daily habit and have it be a meaningful, helpful experience in your life. I tend not to fully remove elements or patterns that some people are using, but I also means I get very specific about the patterns I add because I don't want to add more surface area to maintain. I generally design in clean abstractions, so I don't need to wire in the same logic and copy code in 50 different places. I'm saying, no, this button does this, so call this shared function, and this owns the logic for that. And so that's much easier to add. For example, I just added a cleaner, minimal iOS address bar implementation inspired by Arc Search because someone on social was like, I really want 3 actions here. I want to get into the menu if I need more stuff. I want 1 button for new tab and 1 button for all my tabs. Great, I'll go add that. Another one was a carousel view on iOS to quickly scroll through all your tabs. I'm like, that's easy. And it actually sounds really useful.
What I'm sort of saying is like, at some point you might be removing things.
Well,
and there might be some people who like their cheese in a certain place.
I'm trying to be careful not to
And so
add
being
stuff
opinionated, I understand, but it's inevitable.
Sure.
Like, especially if you're building this fast, there will be something that comes out where you're like, actually, this is a better way to do it. And so therefore I should remove, like in the future, maybe there's just raw data feeds and you synthesize news posts. There's, no, this is going to sound horrible to some people, but like, or people that are like writing news on a daily basis because there's just feeds of raw stuff. And Click is synthesizing information for you to read that's based on your particular goals and your interests. It's like Notebook LM personalized to you specifically in the format that you want. I guess that's what like Hux is building. What I'm saying is the idea right now that we subscribe to feeds, as someone who's been building that infrastructure for like 20 years, obviously I'm quite attached to that mechanism and to connecting to people through that mechanism. But as an example, it may become necessary at some point to actually remove a set of features because it turns out that there's a better way to do it. And so I'm asking, how do you square your opinionization and preferences to make this Jack's browser versus once you have a set of people who want features to stay the same, I guess you risk alienation, but maybe you accept that. I think I'm asking, like, how do you balance those things?
I think I haven't had to deal with it yet, and so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that I would approach it with the same level of thought and care that I put into everything else that I do. And I would have deep empathy if I need to make a change to understand what that would have to look like so that I don't pull the rug out from somebody on something. And so...
Yeah, and this goes into, and this is the real challenge. How do you communicate that with care when you can move so fast and there's not like, okay, in 6 months, I'm going to pull this out, right? What if there's some feature that people have relied on or they use and it's going to go away? And you have all this time to know and to adapt and to move out. But this is like the Chinese model of we're just going to bulldoze your house and build a highway through it because you can do it so quickly. Eminent domain for features for some people. And, that causes some consternation.
I mean, I'll give an example of something I know will evolve. Okay, how about this, right? The saves system on Click is incredibly basic right now. I needed to get the foundations in so that I had a really strong place to grow because I think that there is a huge opportunity in understanding your interests, what you've looked at, things you purposely saved, and...
Well, if you have like an automatic second brain as a result of what you do in your browser, that's enormous. For so many people that have never even tried to go down the path of creating one.
That's exactly right. And that's the way I think about it. And so there's so much opportunity to explore from a technical foundations and from a UX perspective and how that could work. Right now, I needed to get something in the browser so that the foundations were there and I could then expand into a more full-fledged system. That will be something that visually evolves. Some people might like the current system, whether or not I maintain the grid versus list versus canvas or whatever, I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet. I have to explore that feature set and understand what amazing could feel and look like for people and explore that. So, that could be an area where maybe something gets deprecated. I'm speaking, I really don't know. I'm just kind of like floating this as a thing. But to the conversation we've been having this whole time, I need to be able to very clearly articulate the why. I would love to know if you regularly save things so that then I can push something to you. And this is another thing too. I don't want to always be reactive to new updates. I would love to have the opportunity in these feeds to also be proactive with ideas that I have and let people engage and interact around concepts that I haven't necessarily fully explored yet. Maybe even something that has been fully explored on a branch and I have videos of it and images of it and people can say, this looks awesome, or this would be really interesting in capturing that.
Well, I mean, like another way to do this, like to think about software development differently. Again, this malleable software like idea, it can be malleable to a point until it almost like concretizes. Essentially what I mean is you could do almost like an LM Arena type approach where you actually have 3 different variants of the browser out at any given time. And users can opt in to be part of the Petri dish or the experiment. And after some period of time, you have all this signal that says this is actually what should be built.
I 100% am thinking about what a nightly build or what a bleeding edge build looks like, whether that's in the main app itself with
I'm even suggesting like multiple nightly builds.
I know.
Right?
I'm thinking through all the options. I'm thinking through either separate builds that are let's go, you're in the list, or feature flagging in the main app and shipping that as quickly as I can think, and to let people opt in and test
like
features.
Random crazy idea, right? Almost like to leapfrog release notes, screenshots, and all the stuff that you're talking about there, right? That's kind of an archival approach to creating artifacts of your development process. And an alternative could be to actually set up a set of agents that are user researchers that effectively sheepdogs, sort of like herding sheep, where they have variants of the browser. And, there could be like 10 variants that you've built out minor different, structures or UIs or whatever. And those agents actually support and maintain that browser. And as they get feedback from the users, the agents actually update the binary or the build in response to user feedback. Because what I see a lot is it's almost like turning software development into a much more participatory system. And it allows users to figure out how they're going to slap themselves in the face if they actually get what they want. Right? So because like, I guess what I'm saying is, in so many cases, I see users come up with some solution. Sometimes it's like really brilliant. Sometimes you're like, oh, you haven't really thought this through, but that's okay. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But let's give you exactly what you're asking for. Let's have you try it out. And then let's have you actually co-develop the feature with an agent that sits with you and watches what you're trying to do, and then synthesizes the actual intent that the user has. So you can harness that signal and then use that as a mechanism to improve the browser for a larger constituency.
I fully support it. The barrier is compute because it's very expensive, and so there needs to be a filter layer around. I'll give an example of a thing that I now, based on this conversation, I will add into the app. I am going to add, and I'm committing here, I'm going to add a button where they can talk into a microphone and describe a thing that they want. It will automatically transcribe it on your phone, probably using the on-device model, so maybe it won't be that good. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore because the LLMs can parse it and automatically send it to me in probably a tally form so that I can just connect it to other stuff. And you can just shoot that off whenever you want. I will and do already capture analysis of submissions, of feedback submissions, and sort and organize them by shared concept, and then use those to spin off. I'll literally copy that into a session and just start letting it plan and build. So I think right now I'm the barrier to deciding what gets started, and depending on cost of implementation, that might have to remain. However, it shouldn't mean that the automation around doing that analysis and prep work isn't already there. And in theory, it could just run and start prepping those things. And I think the right validation step is building it, getting it through the pipeline where the artifact to review it is an image or a video, not a full build that it has to go use, because that's very expensive to go through and test. And takes it. So that's that. I'm trying to abstract the stuff that I know costs a lot, because I'm also cheap, Chris. I'm trying to
it's important to be cheap.
I'm trying to get the most value I can for the lowest cost, and set up a pipeline that can grow. So this is step one. We're having the conversation at the ground floor. I am starting to get this up and running. I will have so much more to, I'm sure I'll get so excited about some other new discovery or thing in the course of spinning this up. But I am pumped to build the framework around the product, because if I can do it here, it can scale. It's a real test bed.
Okay, so let's wrap up by talking about this other thing you built. You mentioned that you've done something, and I feel like this is sort of, you're talking about this framework that might scale and generalize, so maybe this is an opportunity to talk about that.
All right, so I'm on a little bit of a vacation in Los Angeles for my birthday, and I'm staying with a very good friend of mine who is the head of engineering over at Pseudowrite. And so...
And for those who don't know, what is Pseudowrite?
They are kind of the preeminent novel writing platform. So if you're a writer or a romance writer and you want to go and produce a fiction really quickly and anchor on how to do that, Pseudowrite is the tool. It's like the go-to. So we were on a walk yesterday to go pick up a few things. And on the way back, we were jamming about how the models are so incredible. And even the lower cost models like Sonnet 4.6 now is so good that you could produce a pretty amazing dynamic D&D experience. And so, especially if you anchor around all the lessons that I've been jamming on with memory and structure and multiple agents that control different things and having clarity around that. I mean, again, people talk about it like it's so complicated, but you're defining structure and markdown rules for really good models, and as long as you're orchestrating that in a really effective way, you can produce really freaking magical experiences. So we started this yesterday, and it's so cool in no time. It's called DM.MD, and
is it live?
No, it's not live yet, but it will be somebody already owns the DM.MD domain name, so we'll find a better domain name, but that's the project name. So let me break this down. It's a totally offline in the sense that you'll be able to install it either with command line or you'll be able to go to a website, but the website literally just loads the JavaScript that runs it, and everything else happens on your machine. So when you start, it actually creates a directory in wherever you choose. So in your downloads folder or something, it'll create like a campaigns area, and it's modular. So every API provider, so OpenAI, Anthropic, OpenRouter, 11 Labs, etc., Google, those are essentially plugins. And instead of actually having that logic all live in this app that we have to maintain and update, because we don't really want to have to approve PRs and go the whole like crazy open source route, it downloads all of that stuff directly to your machine, which means you can hot load and add new providers on your own. There's a whole rule set for agents to go spin up another provider. All of the markdown files for all the agents, all downloaded. You can manipulate or edit them directly if you want. And when you create campaigns, it's saving memory logs, session logs, it's every character sheet, everything is saved on your device. So no logins, no servers. There's a Jackbox style authentication for when you start a campaign. It's fully voice controlled. So you pick what voice you want. With 11 Labs, it generates music on the fly. It generates images on the fly. And so you will start your campaign. It'll interview you and ask you questions with a voice, and you'll talk back with a voice. And then at that point, it gives you a QR code and a room number, and everybody who's playing can go and connect with their phones, and you can either quick roll a character or you can be interviewed for a character and go through and answer that. You'll get a full character sheet. This is a connected mobile app that communicates to the server running on your machine to connect around that. And you'll get the character.
How do you open up the ports for that? How does that work?
It's WebSockets. Okay. It's WebSockets. And who knows, maybe that strategy will change. But anyway, we have it up now. Yeah. And then you can go through and you can say, like, when it interviews you, it'll ask you like, how long do you want your campaign to be? Do you want to run a single session or multi-session? You answer with your own voice. So you just kind of say what you want to do. Like, make it 10 minutes, right? Like you can do that and it'll go through and set it up. We have a chaos agent that can so like it will at a random point like introduce some chaos that the DM doesn't know, and then the DM agent has to incorporate that chaos into the flow. It's maintaining state across the entire campaign. We got it up and running this morning with the music generation, or the voice, the map generation, the live illustrations, etc. And it's like, this is freaking good. This is such a magical experience and so cool. And so we need to have Ginny on to talk about it, because this is the most...
I mean, you got to get it like play tested. You got to get it out
yes,
there.
Yes,
like,
and I'll send it over to you, and you can go run a test. It's designed too so that you, once you set it up, you can run it solo if you really want to. Like, you don't need to have, I mean, you could have friends obviously and do it with other people. But like, no,
you can have virtual friends.
You can have virtual friends. But if you want to do it solo, you could totally do it solo. I just think there's so much fun opportunity in the storytelling, and even in the initial testing, again with these models, you're not using a ton of tokens. The cost is very low, and it's just the most magical, cool experience to dynamically have this world built around you. And again, this is something I think is really important. It's kind of baked into my Click ethos. Is you should see the data and control it. When I do saves in Click, it is saving actual data to your iCloud where you can go look at it. I'm not trying to go store it somewhere that you don't have access to it. And I think that the strong thesis around that is that agents should be able to interact with it too. I think it's going to be totally friggin' killer when somebody's like, yeah, I don't even have to push a code update to DM.MD. I can just create a plugin that connects to this provider that does video generation and dynamically pipe in videos that are being generated on the fly. All of this stuff should be super open and flexible. And I don't know, it's only been a few hours, to be honest, but the fact that it's already up and running, again, this is just proof positive. If you know what you're doing, if you have any experience, first of all, I mean, look, if you haven't done any of this stuff yet and you're listening to this, you need to turn this podcast off and go rate us 5 stars on something. I think go rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then just start playing with this stuff and experimenting and do something more ambitious. I hate to say, I mean, I really hate to say it. I'm not trying to be judgy, but do something more ambitious than the To-Do app, please. Go solve a personal problem. Maybe your personal problem has to do with to-dos, and then you should go do it. But please, please, please don't design something for what you think other people are going to like. Go design something you really care about yourself. What is something that you are personally passionate about, that if you really got the bug, you could spend all your night and days working on it? Because I guarantee you, the thing that makes you special, that makes you want to care about that problem, will make the software cool and special. And so go do that, because I think people fall into the trap of needing to feed the social algorithm or freaking, I don't know, it's all gross to me. And I think the world would be better if people focus on the things that they personally cared about in a way that was really meaningful. And so there's such incredible opportunity, the more people that experience and understand how this stuff can be built, to do super magical things. And if you have the skill set and you are familiar now, the things that you can just pick up and make work are insane and incredible. So you should go do it and subscribe to Worktrees.
Done. All right, and that's episode 3. Awesome.
Is it episode 3 or episode 1? Are we going to start here?
You know, we'll have some back filler. You know. Just in case.
Yeah. Well, I think we should count this as episode 1, and all the previous episodes are bonus primordial episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Those are the betas.
Archival
That's
beta
right.
episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. The B-sides.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. Great. Well, we'll do this again soon. And where should people find this? Clickbrowser.app?
Yeah, clickbrowser.app is the main browser. New website coming soon, fully automated by this pipeline we were just talking about. The Worktrees podcasts, I have the Worktrees domain that we're going to use. So it'll be worktre.es. So it's just Worktrees spelled as one word.
.es.
Spell it with a .es. Worktrees, spell it with a .es. So that's going to be the main site. We'll figure out where we're going to host it and what we're going to do around it. Chris, where do people find you?
I'm Chris on Threads, mostly, or chrismessina.me.
Great.
Cool. All right, man.
All right.
Take it easy.
See ya. Bye.